Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Saturday, December 5th, 2020, and looking ahead to the 2024 presidential election, the Democratic Party now has a realistic pathway to 270 electoral votes through 11 states, 11 out of the 50, plus the District of Columbia. That seems like a very undemocratic process. Now, if Joe Biden or the Democratic nominee in 2024, if it isn't him, is to win these 11 states by just a little bit over 50%, he would essentially be, or they would essentially be winning the popular vote with just 18% support nationwide. This would actually be enough to shift all of these states, assuming that the rest of the states voted for the other candidate by 100%, obviously very unrealistic, but this would be a scenario in which a candidate could actually reach 270 with a very small portion of the actual popular vote. Now, if you're looking at a scenario in which we are seeing Joe Biden and the Democratic Party absolutely obliterate the Republican Party, they probably wouldn't be able to tap into this 11-state strategy even in the best case scenario. In 2024, I think Democrats are hoping that this year is better than this election. Usually when presidents run for re-election, they perform better if they are to win. And looking at 2008, this was a year where the Obama campaign did very well. They flipped Indiana. They made Michigan safe. They flipped North Carolina and Florida and Ohio. And these states were traditionally Republican states, not necessarily Michigan, but it was exceptionally close in 2004. We can actually look back really quickly. But the impact that Obama had on these states really told the Democratic Party, they won well over 270 electoral votes, but they still weren't able to tap in to this 11-state strategy that is now possible due to changing demographics and loss of support, erosion of support amongst the suburban groups of people, and also the still continuous loss amongst minority voters. Donald Trump actually increased his percent vote share amongst minority voters this election, but let's say we take Donald Trump out of the equation. Let's say that another Republican is running for president of the United States. I'm going to use him as a placeholder because he currently is leading the 2024 preliminary election data, which is a topic for another video. I think that's fascinating, but we're actually going to focus on how the Democrats could reach 270 electoral votes, and honestly, it isn't a stretch whatsoever. Every single state in this 11-state strategy has been won by the Democratic Party since the year 2000, except for one. Every single state, which means there's a lot of leeway for Democrats. Every single state has been won since the year 2000, as recently as 2012 onward, or 2008 onward. So Obama era, first term, yes, very large victory, but still possible, within reach if there's another Obama-like candidate, or for some of these states didn't even go to Obama in 2008 that went to Joe Biden this election. So I think the most obvious are the very large states, but we're actually going to work in a scenario where we're going from the most Democratic states this election to the most Republican states and show you how far away it actually would be, or how close it actually would be for the Democratic Party. So the first state is California. This is a state with 55 electoral votes, makes up a very significant portion of the electorate on its own. California voted for Joe Biden by 29 points. Flashback to 2008, Obama only won it by 24%. So rapidly growing towards the Democratic Party. 55 electoral votes. The next state is New York. 23 points in favor of Joe Biden over Donald Trump. In 2008, this is actually a narrow decrease, but not super significant enough that this state is somehow going to be competitive. It's still a very solid margin, absolutely, going for the Democratic Party in 2024. The next state, Illinois. A 17-point margin of victory for Joe Biden. This was Obama's home state, not birthday. His birthday was Hawaii. 25 points for him. Only 17 this time, but still solid victory, I'd say. Obama didn't exactly have a grip on some of these more West Coast states as much as Biden was able to, which I think is interesting. So really all depends. But Illinois, Biden plus 17 this election, probably not going to waver. New Jersey, Biden plus 16, 14 electoral votes. And these are all of the safe states. At this point, this puts the Democrats at a position with 115 electoral votes already. 115 electoral votes from just 4 states they won in this election. If you're wondering why Democrats always seem to be the favorites to win early in the evening, is because they were able to win a lot of these populous states, which put them very close to 270, but they still need to do a lot of work in order to get there. For the Republicans, it's actually a little bit more tricky. The electoral map definitely favors the Democratic Party in terms of population areas, but still underrepresented doesn't really help the Democratic Party all that often. But the Democrats entered into 2020 and 2016 with an electoral advantage. You can't deny that Donald Trump still won a pretty significant portion of the swing states in 2020. Iowa, Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, 5 alone. In 2016, he won 10 of them. He needed 10 swing states to even get over the amount of electoral votes. So that's besides the point. Let's keep going. We have 3 more states that voted for voted for Joe Biden, and the rest actually voted for Donald Trump but not by super large margins. We didn't see any safe states in this column. Nowhere near. California numbers, nowhere near a safe margin. The next state would actually be the state of Michigan. 15 electoral votes in this future map, a 3-point margin of victory for Joe Biden, 2.8% actually, if we're being more specific, and also neighboring Pennsylvania, a 1.2% margin of victory for Joe Biden. And then the final state is the state of Georgia, which was decided by 0.3%. Well, now you can see Biden is at 165 electoral votes. That added an additional 50 electoral votes, enough so that it put Joe Biden just 105 away from winning the presidency or whichever Democrat runs in 2024. We're actually going to go ahead and move these over into the safe column just because we were talking about margins originally, but it really has no impact if we're talking about an 11-state strategy. Really wouldn't matter. So that puts the Democrats at 165. Where do they make up this 105? Well, believe it or not, in states surrounding the areas we've already characterized. We have Florida, which went to Donald Trump by 3.4%. If that goes to Biden, that adds a pretty significant portion. The last time Florida went to the Democratic Party was actually recently, in 2012, a 1% margin of victory for Barack Obama with Joe Biden on the ticket. 2016, Trump won Florida by 1.2%. He won it this time by 3.4%, but it is by no means out of reach for the Democratic Party. They aren't the favorites, but it's absolutely not out of reach. Not a single state on here is out of reach. Like I said, every single state, 2008 onward, had voted for the Democratic Party except for one. The next state would be North Carolina, which actually voted to the left of Florida in this election, voted for Donald Trump by 1.3%, much narrower than where it was 4 years ago. The next state would be Ohio, which was an 8.1% margin of victory for Donald Trump. That is going to be the hardest state to win for the Democrats, but they won it as recently as 2012. If they can find a candidate similar to Obama, they could possibly win back the state of Ohio. Michigan, if I remind you, 17-point margin of victory for the Democrats in 2008. At that point, they very well could have said, the Republican Party very well could have said they were giving it up. But 8 years later, it voted for a Republican. So never give up a state. That is a losing strategy, and both parties need a winning strategy, and you only get one by remaining competitive and remaining focused on key battleground states or states that used to be battleground states that very well could be in the future. And the final state is Texas. This is the only state on this map that actually has not voted for the Democratic Party. The last time Texas went blue was in 1976. So the fact that now Texas is competitive because it was won by Donald Trump by less than Ohio, 5.5%, it is not out of reach. If the Democrats are just able to tap into the minority groups the same way they were able to in 2016 and just slightly expand amongst white voters, which should be a reasonable amount of support, that would be enough to shift Texas blue and shift possibly some other states blue as well. Now, Donald Trump did win 4 out of these 11 states, but 10 out of the 11 had voted for Obama at some point or a Democrat, Obama or Biden. And if you're looking at Texas now, that one state puts the Democrats over the top. But the fact that if you just remove one state, the Democrats still have pathways to victory. Because this map is assuming that Donald Trump would be able to carry Maryland and Massachusetts and Washington and Minnesota and Vermont, all of these states. They don't need Texas, really. The Democrats don't need Texas if this is the map. I can show you how easily they get to 270. With just 4 additional states, and probably they could just get less than that. With just 4 additional states, the Democrats are already at 270. So Texas, while would be the icing on the cake, still, this map is feasible even without Texas. But this 11-state strategy is no longer impossible. I wouldn't say the same thing for the Republican Party, which is why the title tells you the Democrats could actually employ this strategy. Because there's a difference between a 29-point margin of victory for Joe Biden in California versus a 5.5% margin of victory in Texas. Both of them are very populous states, but only one of them is actually safe. And I mean that seriously, actually safe. 270 electoral votes for Joe Biden already, or whichever Democrat. And I can show you, in this scenario, Donald Trump could win safe Democratic states. He could win, or whichever Republican decides to run in 2024, they could win any other states on this map because me adjusting surrounding states would not impact the overall result that 270 electoral votes is needed to win. The Republicans could even win D.C. for all the Democrats care. And it would still be the same map where the Democrats are able to win the election with roughly 18% of the popular vote. 18% and able to win just 11 out of the 50 states. 11 out of the 50 states. 39 states voting against the winning candidate. Goes to show you, number one, that the power lies in a lot of these populous states, which makes sense, but also just highlights that if the Democratic Party is able to run a very strong candidate, we could actually be in a scenario where this map is not far-fetched. This map may not be too far-fetched. If I just apply, Joe Biden's victories based off of this election, take a look at exactly how much more it goes for the Democratic Party. Just take a look at how much more it goes for the Democratic Party in this scenario. Take a look. In this map, the Democratic Party would win 407 electoral votes. I know we see it time and time again. Oh, the Democratic Party can win a landslide. And they could. They could have won this election in a landslide. Texas was a 5.5% margin of victory. Had the Democrats done something slightly different, maybe it could have been 4%, 3%, 2%. But 4 years from now, when demographics favor Democrats even more, because this election they surely did, especially in the states where it mattered, Texas could be competitive. And if the Democrats are able to run a candidate from Texas or run it up in Texas, invest millions, tens of millions of dollars in this state, nothing is stopping them because the trend is in their favor. And I've seen a comment or a few talking about how, this election was different, how Texas is going to revert back to its Republican nature. The Republican Party has been saying that for quite some time now, and not a single election has shown us that. So I really think that moving forward, the Democratic Party will start out with the advantage in the Electoral College. Like I said, 11 states needed for victory. 11 states. Think about that. Think about how weird this electoral map would look like if this was the actual, result. And obviously, the Democratic Party isn't going to just focus on 11 states, but the fact that this is even remotely possible, I think really highlights, number one, our electoral college system and whatever you want to take away from the electoral college system itself, and also just where the Democrats could actually win the elections in the future. Because if you just take away Texas, and even if you wanted to take away Ohio, there is a very easy pathway for Democrats to reach 270 from here. Very, very, very easy pathway for the Democrats to reach 270. So even with Ohio and Texas going red, and if we just take some of those safe Democratic states, just the safe Democratic states, Joe Biden or whichever Democrat in 2024 would win the election based off that account. And I think that it's fascinating that the fact that this map is even possible is worth noting. The fact that the Democrats could do this in 2024 is worth noting. Not a single state on here is out of reach, and not a single state on here has not been won by a Democrat since the year 2008, except for Texas. Only one state, and up until recently, it was Georgia as well. So Georgia's already gone. Texas has shown us that it could swing dramatically. Georgia swung 6 points since 2016. 6%. If Texas swings 6% in 2024, it goes to the Democrats. So it's not at all impossible. I'm not trying to say that the Democratic Party will absolutely win in 2024. I really think the Republican Party could win some of these swing states, especially Ohio, especially Texas, if they, play their cards right. But if the Democratic Party has any candidate similar to Obama, you can expect a map such as this, just with an added on, continuous stream of Democratic states, because this is fascinating that this is even remotely possible in our current election landscape, and just that 18% of the voting block, the 270 electoral votes from 11 states really goes to show what our electoral college system can do and how a candidate on the Democratic side could personally exploit that for their presidential election campaign. The fact that this is no longer a far-fetched idea, because it would have been 8 years ago, would have been even 4 years ago, is fascinating. And it also shows how much the electoral map has changed and also where the Democrats are now getting their new support from. So overall, final map with the 11 states goes through California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia. 7 states won by Joe Biden. Then North Carolina, Florida, Texas, and Ohio. 4 states won by Donald Trump, with the largest margin being in Ohio, which was an 8.1% margin. And like I said, every single state had voted for Obama except for Texas, which really goes to show that this is not exactly impossible. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my post 2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.